The Girl at the Rock. The next morning didn't look much different from the one before. I read my list of chores, ate breakfast, and started in. There were a few small housekeeping things, but the only big task left was the backyard garden. I put a little time into it, but my mind wasn't on the work. Even when I went to practice my viola, I couldn't concentrate. Normally, my practice is strict. I don't even take the thing out unless I'm going to play for at least half an hour. But I ran through some pieces I'd done 100 times, shoved the viola back into its case, and called it a day. Under 15 minutes. At least I could say I did it. Grabbing my bike from the garage, I threw on my helmet and shot down the road, excitement bubbling in my stomach. I wasn't sure what I expected, but doing something forbidden? That was enough. At the bottom of Highwood, I turned onto Easton. There it was, the chain-link fence. I stopped in front of the gate and looked around. No one was watching. I scanned the brush poking through the fence and along the edge of the path. What was I expecting back there? It was a sand pit. So what? Still, I took a breath, pulled the gate open wide enough for my bike to pass through, and slipped inside. The road disappeared behind me. The brush thickened, forming a kind of corridor that led 10 or 15 feet along the fence. Then the path dipped, following the slope of the sump. A small thrill ran through me as I climbed on my bike and coasted down into the hollow. The warm wind rushed past my face. Leaves and twigs brushed my arms as I zipped between the overgrowth. At the bottom, the path leveled, and the sump came fully into view. I couldn't ride anymore. My tires sank into the loose sand. I left the bike where it fell and walked across the open pit. The brush above was thick, but down here the growth was sparse, a few tufts of grass and the occasional weed. What the place lacked in greenery, it made up for in trash. Cigarette cartons, beer cans, food wrappers. No doubt this was a hangout for kids sneaking around after hours. Still, it felt peaceful, secluded, safe. The fear I'd had about getting in trouble felt silly now. I explored for a few minutes. The sump wasn't that big, just sand, some scattered junk, and evidence of kids doing what kids probably weren't supposed to do. I thought I'd seen everything, until I noticed another trail on the far side. It mirrored the one I came in on, but angled up toward the opposite side. I grabbed my bike and pushed it across the sand. There was no way I'd be able to ride up the slope, so I hauled it awkwardly, the tires dragging deep grooves behind me. At the top, a thinner trail ran along the fence. It was less worn, the brush pressing in close on both sides. Thorns scraped my arms as I pushed forward. Then I saw it. The fence had been cut. Someone had gone at it with bolt cutters, slicing the links nearly all the way to the top. The metal curled outward like the flaps of a teepee. Beyond the fence, the woods stretched out, dense, shaded, and quiet. I'd seen these trees from the road before, driving through town. They were bordered on all sides by roads, but the far edge, pushing up against Smith Road, was at least a few miles long. I slipped through the cut in the fence. The same thrill hit me as before, maybe stronger. The woods sprawled before me like a secret waiting to be found. Now, sprawled is relative. Back in Pennsylvania, you could enter a forest and wander for hours, maybe days, without finding the other side. Here, I knew town was only a couple miles away, but these woods felt vast. They felt like they were mine. I climbed onto my bike, relieved to find that the trail from the sump continued through the woods. I pedaled along the path, mostly smooth, though occasionally broken by tree roots or a fallen log. The trail wound behind a nearby housing development, then curved sharply toward the wood's center. It felt lived in, used, maybe by people I wouldn't want to meet. Beer bottles, snack wrappers, old notebooks, the occasional single shoe. It all made the place feel strange, not less natural, but somehow more. I kept riding, climbing and coasting over hills, laughing aloud at the speed. It was the most fun I'd had in a while, which, granted, wasn't saying much. Eventually, the trail dropped into a deep hollow and met what looked like a main path. It was wider, flatter, and packed down by heavy use. Several smaller trails branched from it. I had a decision to make. I figured I'd try one of the side trails, maybe map the place a little. They all looked about the same, except for one on the right. It wound uphill, narrower, carved more by footsteps than bikes. Unlike the sump, where I ditched my bike without a second thought, I felt like I should keep it with me here. So I started walking it up the trail. I could have ridden, maybe, if I had more experience, but I didn't. Step by step, I pushed forward, careful not to trip over roots crawling across the packed dirt. Above me, leaves rustled in the breeze. Blue sky peeked between the branches. The air smelled like life. When I reached the top, I saw something in the clearing ahead. A rock. It was bigger than I was tall and longer than a car, oblong, misshapen, and completely covered in graffiti. The trail opened into a clearing wide enough for sunlight to pour in, spotlighting the rock like a museum display. I dropped my bike and walked up to it, trailing my hand across the sun-warmed surface, the layers of spray paint. Then, like any kid would have done, I climbed it. I stood tall above the clearing, looking as far as the trees would let me. It was quiet, beautiful, and short-lived. "Hey!" I nearly fell off the rock. A voice had come from the other side. As I regained my balance, I looked down to see a girl leaning back against the far side of the rock, craning her neck to see me. Her long red hair fell over her forehead, blocking a full view of her face, but her eyes were hard to miss, bright green and rimmed in thick black makeup. She cocked her head and scrunched her eyebrows, her shoulders shaking with silent laughter. She was laughing at me, obviously. "Sorry," I stammered. As her laugh faded into a grin, she stood. She wore cut-off jean shorts that looked homemade and a black, sleeveless shirt, which read Pearl Jam. She crossed her arms and stared up at me. "Shouldn't you be in school?" she asked. I had no hope of sounding clever in that moment, so I said the worst possible thing. "Oh, I'm homeschooled." She tilted her head. "Homeschooled? Are you a Mormon?" "What? No. Why?" I remember 2 Mormons going door to door around my neighborhood. They looked just like... She gestured at me. That. The only Mormon I knew was in my old string ensemble, and she was very nice, but I still didn't like how one-sided this conversation was becoming. "Well, what about you?" I asked. "Shouldn't you be in school?" She shrugged. "I'm skipping." "Do you go to Longview?" I asked, pointing vaguely toward where I thought the school was. "Yeah, I go there. It sucks, but probably still better than homeschooling." I laughed. "I wouldn't know." "So," she said, "what's your name?" "Nathan Green." "Alex McPherson. Nice to meet you." Well, that's comforting, I thought. I'm glad it's nice to meet me. "You as well," I said, shaking her outstretched hand. She smirked. "So, what's with the outfit?" "What do you mean?" "I mean it's June. It's over 70 degrees. You're wearing a button-up shirt and... Are those khakis?" I looked down. "I guess this is my bike riding outfit." "Right, homeschooled," she said. I should have been offended, but I wasn't. I was aware of how I looked. It had never really bothered me. But something about Alex made me, not hesitant exactly, just curious. "What are you doing out here?" I asked. "I should ask you the same thing," she said. "This is my spot. I'm here every day once school's out, and any time I feel like skipping." "Don't you get bored?" "I bring stuff." She nodded toward her backpack. "It's kind of my home base." "It's a nice rock," I said. She grinned. "Come on down. I'll show you something." I climbed down and stood beside her, catching a faint mix of laundry detergent and cigarette smoke. "The graffiti tells a story," she said, pointing at the rock. "Or at least, I think it does." She led me around to the far side. "Here, see the initials? ESS. That's East Side Soldiers, one of the groups that used to tag this place." "Soldiers?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Some kind of gang?" She shrugged. "It's all bluster, just dumb kids trying to sound tough. And over here," she pointed to a Sharpie drawing of a tree. Underneath it, someone had written Pine Barrens. "That's the other group." She looked around the clearing. "I don't think any of them have been around in years, but their tags are everywhere. You can tell they used to paint over each other, back and forth." She stepped toward a small outcropping at the base of the rock. "There's my spot," she said. I crouched beside her. On the underside of the stone in black marker were 2 names. Alex King. "Who's King?" I asked. "A friend. He used to come here all the time, until he got obsessed with some stupid video game. You'll probably meet him if you come back around." She rummaged in her backpack and pulled out a chisel-tipped Sharpie. "Here," she held it out. "Go ahead." "Go ahead. What?" "Write your name." I hesitated. It shouldn't have felt like a big deal, but it did. It was a choice that had an impact. I took the Sharpie, noticing her black painted fingernails, and peered at the space above her name. "Here," she said, pointing. I pressed the marker to the rough surface and slowly spelled out my name, all in caps. When I finished, I capped the marker and handed it back. "Thanks," I said. I wasn't sure what I was thanking her for. Maybe the marker, maybe a space to call my own. "So, homeschool," she said, tossing the Sharpie back into her backpack. "Why?" "Well, I mean, it wasn't really my decision," I replied. "My mom's really into classical education, and we couldn't afford to send me to private school, so she started teaching me herself. After we moved, we just kept doing it that way." "Oh," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Where'd you move from?" "Pennsylvania." "How was that?" I shrugged. "A lot more rocks." "Wow, thrilling. Where do you live now?" she asked. "Are you nearby?" "Yeah, my family bought a house on Highwood." Something shifted in her expression. It was quick, but I caught it. Something like disappointment, or maybe wariness. "Oh, nice," she said casually. "How about you?" I asked. "Oh, I live off Smith Road." Her tone flattened a bit, like that was as much as she planned to say. That was fine. I didn't know one road from another anyway. "Cool," I said. "So why are you skipping school?" I asked. "Because school sucks, and it's a nice day. I think that's reason enough, don't you?" "I guess," I replied. "But can't you get in trouble?" "There's not much they can do," she said with a shrug. "Hell, the worst thing they can do is suspend me, which would just give me more of what I want. I go enough to make them happy. A few more years and I'm out. That'll be perfect." She turned and dropped down onto the rock again, leaning back with her arms behind her. "So, what kind of music do you like?" "Me? I like Elgar, Rachmaninoff, some Beethoven." She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You like what?" "They're composers, musicians." "Yeah, I got that. How about music from the past century?" "Well, technically both Rachmaninoff and Elgar are." She held up a hand. "Stop. Don't make me regret asking you to put your name on my rock." I laughed. "I'm talking about music people actually listen to. Have you ever heard of Linkin Park? System of a Down?" I twisted my face, thinking. I might have heard the names. I don't think I know any of their songs. "Okay. How about stuff on the radio? Nickelback? Usher?" She gave a dramatic shudder. "Black Eyed Peas?" "I think I know that one Black Eyed Peas song. Let's Get It Started?" She slapped her forehead. "Great. You know the worst one. This is bad. We're going to have to work on this." She paused, glancing at her bag. "But I didn't bring my music today, so it'll have to wait." I stood there, trying not to look totally lost. "All right, well, it's a wash for music," she said, "and I can't imagine you'll do any better with TV or movies." "Probably not," I sighed. "I watch the Discovery Channel sometimes. History Channel." "Well, at least you have a TV," she said. I laughed. "Yeah, I have one." "But what good does it do you if you don't watch anything on it?" "I do watch stuff on it." "History Channel doesn't count. May as well be going to school." She started pacing around the clearing, shaking her head like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I just chuckled, knowing that my lifestyle was giving her endless material. "Okay, we'll deal with this stuff later," she said, stopping and spinning to face me. "I'm not sure I even want to know, but I've got to ask. What do you like to do?" "Well, I like to read." She rolled her eyes, tapping her foot in the dirt. "Like what, Harry Potter?" "Actually, I'm not allowed to read Harry Potter." She threw her hands up. "Unbelievable. What, do you spend all your time reading Little House on the Prairie? I had read Little House on the Prairie twice, but I'd keep that to myself. I read a lot of classics, I said. Right now I'm reading Virgil. She blinked. Who's Virgil? He was a Roman poet. He's reading Roman poets. Unbelievable. She paused, still staring at me, then gave a little laugh. All right, enough of the reading. What else do you do? Well, I play the viola. She didn't react right away. Maybe that was a good sign. Okay, so you read and you play the viola. Anything else? I've been riding my bike a lot. The interrogation felt like it was going a little far, so I decided to turn it around. Well, what about you? You're just sitting around here. What do you do? She raised her eyebrows. Well, yeah, I am just sitting around here, I guess. But when I'm not, I listen to good music. I watch good movies. Okay, fair point. Alex smiled. I never said my life was exciting. Okay, I said. Hey, do you have the time? I held up my arms, both wristwatch-free. Sorry, I said. That's fine. She dug through her bag and pulled out a loose watch face with no bands. Still working, apparently. Ah, she muttered. 2:00. I should get back to my bus stop. Why would you go to your bus stop? I'm not going to my bus stop, but I better be around my bus stop. That way I get home around the same time I would have if I'd actually gone to school. My mom doesn't really care. I mean, I don't think she likes it, but if she notices I skipped, she might get mad. Especially if she's... She trailed off, shook her head. Never mind. Oh, well, it was nice to meet you, I said. Listen, she replied. I probably won't be able to skip again before school's out, but that's only a week from now. Next Wednesday's the last day. Thursday, I'll be here. You'd better come back. Okay. I'll bring my stereo. I'll show you some good music. Sounds like fun. See you later, Nathan. Bye. Try not to die of boredom reading Virgil until then. Hey, Virgil is not that... Stop, she interrupted, grinning. I don't want to hear it. There was something endearing about her teasing. Maybe she didn't mean it that way, but it made me feel... seen. I hopped on my bike and rode home, through the sump, up Highwood Road, and into my driveway. All the while, I was processing what had just happened, and the new friend I'd made. She felt like a friend. All my other friendships had grown around common interests, homeschool groups, string ensembles. But whatever this was, it didn't feel like that. And I liked it. And regardless of what happened next, my name was out there on that rock, permanent, even if I wasn't sure I was. Then, my mind shifted to an uncomfortable reality. How much of this should I tell my parents? Would think they take kindly to me spending the afternoon with some girl I met in the woods? I'd have to be careful.